A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode, we feature an award-winning builder, Sean Richards from Sean Richards Building. I was lucky enough to be recording this podcast inside Sean's completed project at Soldiers Point, which is in Port Stephens, New South Wales. This project won Hunter Home of the Year in 2019, and you'll hear more about this incredible project inside this episode. This was a very genuine sit-down and provided a really down-to-earth conversation from a builder who you can tell by a chat, Sean has good old-fashioned values. I really enjoyed seeing this waterfront project, and what was even more amazing was how Sean completed this project without the owners nearby and then took out Home of the Year. What a fascinating building to both see and hear about. So let's get into it. Sean Richards from Sean Richards Building, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thanks, Aaron.
Now today I'm lucky enough to be at Port Stephens, which is about an hour north of Newcastle. Fantastic holiday destination and an amazing place to work, and we're in this incredible award-winning holiday home. And before we talk about more about it and hear about the story, as always with our guest Sean, we always like to take it back to the beginning. So whereabouts did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Maroubra in Sydney.
That's a great part of the world to grow up in.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty close to the beach there, and involved in the beach a lot with surfing and surf life saving and things like that. And then, so I did my primary school education in Randwick in Sydney, and then went to boarding school in Barrel for 6 years. Did my secondary up there, so Chevalier College.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so parents separated and thought it was best that I go to boarding school, which was hard at first, but then they couldn't get rid of me at the end. I think between socialising and sport, it was pretty exciting time actually. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, Barrow's a great part of the world. So early on, I guess, going through school, did you set out to enter the construction industry, or what did you want to be sort of finishing school?
Yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I probably, knowing now that I just went and did a carpentry apprenticeship, I could have left in year 10. But I think, the boarding school lifestyle, like the socialising and the sport, the football was pretty, So anyway, I went to year 12 and always had an interest in industrial arts and tech drawing and woodwork for that matter. And just sort of basically thought, maybe I'll go to uni and study building. And then I just sort of didn't quite get the marks, and apprenticeship came up in Sydney, and so I thought I'd give it a go, and really enjoyed the outdoor, and just I thought it was a good trade to get into because it can evolve into other things. So and that's where I started my apprenticeship in '86 in Sydney, and did my apprenticeship there. And
was that for like a builder or carpenter?
Yeah, he was a builder in Sydney who seemed to have a lot of connections with Royal North Shore Hospital with the doctors, and we did a lot of renovations around Pymble and St Ives, and back then they were $250,000, $300,000 renos. Back in the 80s was quite a lot of money, and I think Royal North Shore Hospital had a massive expansion and all these specialists moved into the area, and he sort of jumped onto that, and we did quite a lot of work up there, and so it was interesting work too. It was, from the start, it was all custom sort of home renovation, basic builds, and quite involved, quite a big process, a lot of them, and so I really enjoyed that. And then I used to come up here to Nelson Bay for weekends, and used to think, what am I staying in Sydney for? And then managed to find a builder up here, and ended up finishing my apprenticeship my 4th year up here, and then I stayed with the same guy for another 8 or 9 years, and we did a lot of big, basically contemporary sort of architectural stuff up here, and that's how I sort of got really interested into that market and that type of build.
Isn't it a great story that you thought coming to Nelson Bay or the Port Stephens area from Sydney and fell in love with the place and thought, I'll just move there. I find that quite great.
Yeah, the traffic was pretty dreadful even back then. We were doing a job on the eastern suburbs in Bronte, and I was living in Ryde, and we used to work till 6 o'clock at night just to get away from the traffic. It used to take us over an hour. We did that job for nearly 12 months. So, just the commuting sort of got to me at the end, and, coming up here and seeing how easy and laid back it was pretty simple choice.
I bet. Okay, so working in Port Stephens for a local builder, what was that like?
Yeah, it was good. It was hard. I probably didn't have the skills that he was expecting I would have doing 3.5 years in Sydney. I mean, I think with a lot of the renovation work we did down there, it was a lot of labouring. Used to call me the human bobcat. I used to basically just carry stuff down the side of the house. I came up here, I couldn't hang a door, I couldn't... So, he was pretty... I think he thought, well, we've got a bit of work to do here. But, no, look, over the time, he was good for me and definitely taught me how to learn my trade properly. And, it wasn't easy. And after that time with him, I spent a couple of years out just subcontracting to project mobs and doing frames and trusses and things like that. So, learnt there's some money to be made doing that, but it's awfully hard work. And, and then, just sort of bit the bullet around 2000 to kind of do my own thing. It was an interesting time, actually, because GST came in and a lot of the local builders up here were in there, they were ready to retire. I'm not sure whether many people can remember, but it was bedlam. Like, they didn't know what to do. Like, we were going to workshops about GST and that, and these guys would just get up and walk out. They just had enough. And I didn't know any different. So,
and there's a lot of cash work going on as well back then as well.
Of course,
particularly in the holiday regions.
Definitely. And so a lot of guys basically retired, and it left an opening. There was 4 or 5 younger sort of builders like myself who were starting out, and so we just started. Just started that way, and started doing decks and pergolas and different things, and then things just evolved.
So did you have any contacts starting out? Like when you made that move to go out on your own, did you have any work actually lined up or stuff on the side?
I think by memory I had a couple of small jobs, but they're only a couple of weeks long, and I started quoting one in particular, a home, one of the first homes I quoted, and the owners didn't end up going ahead. It was over budget, and I just commented to the client. I said, that plans are really easy to read and really nice. They were just a good plan to read. The next minute I had a phone call from the designer wanting to know whether I wanted to quote other works. And at that stage he was sending me big jobs in Merewether and things like that, and I certainly wasn't geared up to do that sort of thing. But eventually I started doing some work for him, and we've had nearly a 20-year relationship now where we've done a lot of work together. And I've enjoyed his work, and a lot of the homes that people see that I've done are his designs. And what was his name? Torren Bell.
Torren Bell. So Torren Bell, he was a designer?
He was a building designer, He was based in Newcastle. He's now in Gold Coast, but commutes. He's got an office in town and comes down to meet clients regularly. But so we just hit it off. He did live in Port Stephens for a limited time. We built a house for him up here at Salamander Bay. So he basically was just starting to inject work for me basically, and it was a good relationship, and still is.
And isn't it a good story how just one inquiry from a designer or architect can form a 20-year building relationship? Yeah,
exactly. And I think back at it, it certainly was a turning point, and it gave me the step that I needed to get confident in doing that sort of work. And now I still do work for other designers, but we've still got a relationship and still do work together. It's been good.
And when you made that move to go out on your own and you had that work lined up, did you have any mentors or someone guiding you along the way back then?
look, there's a few builders in the Bay that I did a little bit of work for on and off, and they were sort of, yeah, no, definitely. And then friends were also in the trades and different things, so we sort of bounced things off each other, and I'd help them out a little bit and they'd help me. But I think as things progressed, I sort of got involved sort of trying to educate myself a bit. Joined the HIA of all things, and they had a couple of workshops going and about basic contracts administration, and that's a huge, looking back now, like I'm glad I got an appreciation of that sort of thing because, as you could appreciate, it's such a big part of what we do.
It certainly is.
Yeah. And so I really got some, really tried to absorb as much of that as I could, and and from there, I use the HIA contracts and use all their literature, and I go, basically, as a builder, you've got to get 12 CTP points up a year, so you get for training and different things. So I use their workshops and their things like that to keep that involved, and had some success with their awards as well, which has been nice, and we've got a good relationship.
That comes back to, I guess, having structure in place and being a sponge and using the resources available rather than, as a lot of people I've since seen, where they'll get access to that documentation through CPD points and just receiving it and never looking at it. It's amazing what sort of resources are available.
And you don't, just being educated, getting back to contracts again and different things and where your liabilities stand and things, which, when you start doing a lot of work, things go wrong or things don't go to plan or, and you really need to know where you stand and, it's a different interest. It's certainly, you go from building and actually the physical carpentry sense to, trying to run a business and being a businessman and a business owner, a small business, and it's a challenging. It can be stressful too.
Yeah, I think it's that old 80-20 principle in reverse, where I think when you're building or you're starting off as a carpenter or maybe a small builder, you might be 80% on the tools, 20% doing quotes or other office work, and then becoming a builder, you almost flip that on its head and it becomes 80% office work or contract admin work, quoting, chasing up payments, making sure subbies are getting paid, and probably 20% on site. So I do see a lot of that from my line of work. I'm interested to know, what were your goals back then?
I think having a young family back then, just wanting to have a nice home, basically. I was building all these beautiful homes and we were working towards that ourselves, and we would buy and sell. I think we did 6 properties up here in 20 years, just buying and living in we had a 4 or 5 year plan where we would get them up, and we did very well. I mean, the market back then from 2000 or from 95, you could double your money on a project in 5 years, which doesn't seem to happen these days. But we're lucky enough. And I was working on a lot of waterfronts, and my goal was to own a waterfront. Yeah,
like this place.
Not quite to this calibre, but I was fortunate enough to buy one when I was about 36, so I was pretty impressed. I was pretty happy about that.
I bet.
Yeah, and it was a good lifestyle for us with a young family. And then, as things have progressed now, my son now works for me. He's a second-year apprentice. He's 21, and my daughter's 18 doing a HSC. So, a few years ago we made the decision to move into Newcastle and still work in Port Stephens, but still do work in town. So, it's been good.
And going back to the beginning, how difficult was it juggling a family and running your own business?
Yeah, it's extremely busy time. Kids in their sports, and being in the Bay, a lot of their sports were outside Port Stephens. So, we were constantly travelling every weekend for football and whatever else they were into. So, it was hard. I used to do a lot of work on Sundays. I'd just work because, and as you talked earlier about when you become a builder, you lose, you basically get off the tools. My body was pretty well telling me that. So, and to do that, you're pretty much, if you've got 2 or 3 sites running, well, you're not getting any paperwork done or any book work done. So, yeah, weekends are now my work time, and I'll have a Wednesday off or something during the week to compensate that. But so that's the way I run, and which gives me the freedom to sort of be on site all the time, or try to be, just to keep the ball rolling.
I think you have to be too. I mean, to deliver a house of this calibre, being 2019 Hunter Home of the Year, I think you can't afford not to have that time, and that time on site, the level of detail, interacting with trades, and just monitoring what goes on. Yeah,
definitely. It was this particular job you just couldn't leave. It was constantly changing. There was a lot of variations, so there was just a lot of communication, and that was the key. Like as a builder, if you lose communication with the designer or the client, you're behind the 8 ball straight away. You really got to keep that communication, and a lot of my clients weren't local. At the moment, I've got one in Singapore, one in Melbourne. These clients were from Sydney. It wasn't, they weren't readily available to have a site meeting whenever you want. So, there's a lot of correspondence. And communication, that's all I can say, was just huge.
And I mean, Port Stephens, and particularly this area being Soldiers Point, if I could describe Soldiers Point's basically, or predominantly beachfront houses, a lot of holiday homes here, or you have this very particularly proud workforce of trades, as well as other businesses, of course. But driving into Port Stephens today, I could see a lot of trades, and I think it'd be one of those areas where people carry a lot of pride with what they do, and it's not so much about dollar, it's about service and community. It seems to be very community based and have that feel about it.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, a lot of the trade, there's some great trades up here. I've had trades for the last 15 years. I've had, plumbers, electricians, got carpenters that have been with me 10 year plus, and they're good guys. And the Newcastle market's different for me. Probably got a different group of guys in there that I'm starting to use. The trades up here have been brilliant, and there's a level of respect, and you're sort of living, you do see each other a bit and different things. So but there's some really good, and this level of build you need, and you need a lot of great trades, and a lot of them do come from Newcastle, of course, because specialty things like automation and things like that just aren't available up here. But
and what a spot to work too, right on the water.
Yeah. It's pretty easy. Like, you can get a park. I've just been up in Newcastle East for the last 4 years doing renovations, literally in one street. And it's been a disaster. I've got a pretty bad relationship with the parking cop up there. But,
that's okay. It's a healthy one.
Yeah. 110 here, 110 there.
Who inspires you?
I just get inspired by. I love new projects. I love the chase of winning jobs, basically. That's what I'm sort of, I don't go out looking for it, but when it's in front of me and I want to really chase that, I'll do my best. And I put a lot of time and a lot of effort. So it sort of, that keeps me going. We're loving our own, we've just sold an investment property that we bought a few years ago and renovated that in Newcastle, and that's been a nice. I love doing my own stuff, my own work as well. But and that was a good start, and we plan to continue sort of progressing in that sort of field to end up doing our own projects as well as clients' projects.
How do you interact with trades, and what sort of communication tactics do you employ dealing with those guys?
I don't really have anything too. Just a lot of contact, just a lot of communication and emails and text messages, etc. With my own guys, we have a WhatsApp basically, and we communicate through that. At this point, I've only got probably 7 guys on now, but at one stage, had 12, 14 guys working, and yeah, it was hard sometimes to work out where everyone was. So,
what was that like?
It was
having
crazy.
12, because employing people, particularly a team, and I've been in the same boat. For the people listening to this, what's it like, day to day, having 12, 14 people to look after?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's it's certainly, I probably wasn't ready probably for the, I probably wasn't, I suppose I had foremen and guys in place to run jobs, and they were running the guys, so I was sort of watching from the back a bit, but I probably didn't handle it as well as what I probably could have. But
I think it's difficult because it's not just like having, I don't know, pick an example like a restaurant, for example, where you've got 14 people there in the one controlled environment. You have, I don't know, say a set menu. You might have different customers or clientele, but at the end of the day, they might be buying drinks or entrees or mains, whatever it might be. But with building, every job's different. There could be different trades. You have weather, you have time, you have money pressures, you have the whole lot there, plus throw the dynamics of dealing with people into the mix. Like, it's very difficult, isn't it?
It is, and even your wage bill every fortnight, was literally double what I was used to, and so it took its toll. But look, we had the work, we had a couple of big projects going on, so I needed that. I needed that power, that manpower to finish these projects on time and on budget. So, and look, I'll step back up there again at some stage, but I probably will be a little bit more. I'll probably have a system in place, I suppose you could say,
a bit more structure. A
bit more structure than just she'll be right and away we go. But no, look, it's enjoyable. I mean, just with the recent times with COVID-19 and things like that, we just been lucky where it hasn't really affected us at all with guys on site. We just keep numbers down, and it's been quite manageable, really. But it's something in the back of your mind that's another thing you're sort of conscious of, and a lot of trades are really quite, even like a month ago, they were pretty cautious about who's on site and what are they doing and how are they feeling, and it was interesting.
And construction already has that mentality, if you like, anyway, doesn't it, where, this is our site at the present, or, what are you doing here? We've still got work to be done. So throw that into the mix, and it can be quite a colourful relationship.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But it's all it all works. It's all working well for me at the moment, and I'm enjoying it. Enjoying building, and enjoying Newcastle too. And we're living in I do a lot of custom sort of contemporary sort of builds, but living in a 100-year-old terrace house, and trying to renovate that at the moment too. So it's opened up a can of worms there as well.
Have you always been Sean Richards Building?
No, it's always that name's been there from 2000 when we started the business. Recently become a company last year, and Sean Richards Projects has sort of evolved now, but still trading as the old name, Sean Richards Building. But it's been around for a while, and hope it continues.
I think it's, you don't see it. It's very unique these days, so it's actually nice to see, because putting a name out there, it has to stand for itself, doesn't it? You're putting your name on the line and your reputation, so it's nice to see these days. Yeah,
and I think, clients expect you to be on site as well, which is sometimes challenging, because if you've got 2 or 3 sites going and they're an hour away from one another, it's, But look, I try to be on site as much as I can, and try to have weekly site meetings with clients if they're able to, and getting back to communication, and just, I think that's the key to any good build, is keeping in contact.
Absolutely. Now, what gets you up every morning?
Oh, the dog. A little schnauzer that hassles me at 5 o'clock every morning, wants to go to the park.
So that's your routine?
At the moment it is. Try to get to the gym a couple of times a week and ride a mountain bike with some mates, which is a good out. Just generally, just with my son, working for us as well. That's been great. Like, I thought he would do something else, but did a couple of years at uni and wasn't quite up for it. But or he didn't really enjoy it. So we didn't think he'd like to put a nail bag on. But he's going really well, and so that's it's taken a bit of interest for me. And my daughter doing a HSC this year has been a bit of a challenge with the current circumstances too. So. Yeah, and we're renovating our own property. So it does, look, we've got a lot of things. I'm moving my office from Port Stephens into Newcastle next couple of weeks, and so we're madly renovating a warehouse at the moment and getting that ready to go. So, it's busy times at the moment. And
what's it like looking back now from going out on your own, having that young family, and I guess setting out to go from decks and pergolas to architectural projects? What's it like looking back now?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, and I think on one of your other podcasts, one of the other guys said this is a bit like therapy, and it has actually made me think a bit of you tend to forget where you were or where you came from. So it's been pretty cool. I've been very lucky. I've had some good people around me, and happy where I'm heading.
And you certainly, in the short space of time that I've been able to meet you, you come across as a very proud, sort of structured, old-fashioned kind of guy. So, strong family values, I feel.
Oh, definitely. Just want to be happy. And, I think family's everything as well. Like, I mean, you can have goals and have, nice house and nice cars, and I do like all that. But at the same time, your quality of life, just enjoying life at the moment and enjoying the projects we're working on, and hope that continues.
You mentioned before about how much thrill you get out of dealing with a job, or trying to win the job or get the client. What is your favourite part of the job? Is that your favourite part, or what other favourite parts do you enjoy?
Oh, certainly handover when you've finished a project, and the client's happy. That's the main thing. The client's always got to be comfortable, and if they're not happy with something during the build, I'll make sure that we make sure they are happy. I think that's you can't have a client that's not happy with the product or not happy with the way things were supposed to look. We try to do that as best we can. I love starting jobs. I love getting them out of the ground, because it's probably the most difficult part of the build. We have some testing sites, and that's a bit of a challenge, but winning the project and seeing it through to the end. We're handing over one this week, which is a beautiful home, and very, very proud of that. And the clients couldn't be happier. So it's just a nice feeling.
Have you ever had one of those days where you just felt this is just too much, or I want to give up the building game?
Oh, look, when my son said he wanted to be a carpenter, I nearly... I thought, are you serious? Like, what do you want to... I think the building industry is hard. It's a hard gig. It really is.
It's extremely hard.
Yeah, and people don't realise that. It's one to have the skill and the knowledge to build these structures, but it's another thing to be able to handle the stress, and financially, a client might owe you money, or, you've got something goes wrong on site and it costs you 10 grand or something like that. It's a hard one to swallow, and it's your own money. So
how do you deal with that?
I think as time goes on, and having 30 years experience now in the industry, I suppose I handle it a lot better than what I used to. I don't know, you just you got to be careful. Like, you can get depressed. I mean, you can really, it's quite a common thing in the building industry now that you've got to really watch. You really got to look after yourself, and I try and do that, through just fitness or whatever. But it's more of an out than anything, and I just you just got to be careful. Yeah, stress is huge.
It is, and particularly employing people and the stress of 10, 15, whatever it might be, 20 mouths to feed, making sure, as you said, wages, financial stress, weather stress, and then throw in the mix the recent COVID crisis, which has affected everyone. It's slowed activity down. It's created a lot of other stresses that would never have happened before this or for some time.
And I'm interested to see how, when things do get back to normal and the government stop handing out money and different things like that, how the building industry in particular is going to handle that, because we're a huge part of the economy. So, and they realise that, obviously. But
definitely.
Yeah, I would have to say that I'm certainly getting quieter, even at this higher end, and not sure whether it's going to impact that sort of clientele.
I think that's an important point to reflect on, and to, when you are in the building industry, to have that diversity, whether you're a high-end builder, renovations type builder, if you have your hand in both markets, that allows you to diversify during tough times when there's GFCs or recessions or vice versa. Oh,
yeah, that's definitely true. A lot of my works in Newcastle are just renovations, and yeah, there's nothing. They're hard to budget. They're hard to quote, basically, and that's where sometimes you might do a cost plus contract or someone like with the renovation, but they're definitely there's definitely a market there as well. But I don't have to always be doing big custom homes either. We've got 3 crews of carpenters running around, and we're doing an office fit out at the moment. We're doing we're doing other than just doing big builds, basically. So
yeah, and you're in an entirely different market. And speaking of entirely different markets, we're recording this podcast, as I said earlier, on the waterfront at Soldiers Point. People listening to this will be able to go onto our Instagram and check out the photos and see some shots. But if I was a builder starting out and I'm building decks and pergolas and small alterations and additions, and I'm aiming to be building multi-million-dollar houses such as this one right on the waterfront, what are the steps? What sort of tips or tricks would you have for those guys coming up the ranks?
I think even to get the home warranty insurance to do these sort of builds, you've got to have a bit of equity behind you. You can't have, you've really got to be financial to be able to get the insurance to actually build these projects. So that's a tough one for young guys coming in who don't have that financial backing. And so I find, it takes a while to get up to that level of build cost because of that restriction, basically.
So to describe to the people listening to this who don't know what home warranty is, basically in the construction industry you have a home warranty insurance scheme, which is basically set up by the government for protection basically to the homeowner. So as a builder, to have home warranty insurance, you need to either have a heap of cash behind you, a pretty stable trading history with a lot of money behind you, or you have to put up, I guess, assets and sign directors' guarantees, so that if something goes wrong in the home, the owner has an insurance policy in place. They can enact that, and the insurance company can go after the builder if the builder's not there to fix it. So it's basically designed to protect the homeowner.
Yeah, correct. And that's
and it's not easy to get.
It's not easy. Even myself becoming a company only 18 months ago, they're pretty well treating my 20-year trading history as
nothing, really.
They're not really looking at it. They're looking at what Sean Richards' project's done in the last 18 months, which is a renovation and one build. And so that's a struggle. So I'm actually limited with what I can do now. Instead of having 4 or 5 mil, I've only got 2. So I'm working back up again. I'm working at the age of 50. My company is, but that's just it's a hard thing. And I look at a lot of young builders who I employ. I have guys who are licensed builders who just don't have that financial commitment to go out by themselves. And I know some guys who have just gone out and done that, and they're finding it difficult to even get the home warranty to do the work.
That's right. So this Soldiers Point project, it won Home of the Year in the Hunter region last year. What was that like, winning that?
Yeah, it was great. It was a good night. I had all my boys. It was a boys' table, basically. The wives were, decided that. Anyway, we thought we'd just invite all the boys that worked on the project, and it was fortunate enough that we had a very successful night, and I won the same award back in 2013 for another project only down the beach here, actually, and this time around it was probably a little bit more satisfying because there's a lot more. I think social media has come a long way in 6-7 years, and certainly getting a lot more notoriety, and a lot more people are aware of the project and the award that it won, and there's a lot more interest there, and it's just amazing how it's come that way. Whereas in 2013 I was lucky to get a phone call, and it was just it's a totally different experience.
All right, so with this project, what was the process with becoming the builder of this job?
The client contacted me probably 5 years ago now. I only just lived down the road, and not sure whether I did I've had a number of projects down the road here. So, met with the client, and it was an existing 2-storey building that had a DA approval for renovation. So we started the renovation, and then things just didn't go to plan. There was low ceilings, and the owner wasn't happy. So we sort of stopped work, and 2 years later they came back with this design.
So they actually decided, look, we think we want something better on this site.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so it was sort of they approached a Queensland designer who does a lot of work around Noosa and around those areas, a bloke called Chris Clout. And so he designed this home, and it got DA approved, and then I basically got involved from there. It took about 2 years, I think, for them to get to that stage. We started back in, I think it was mid-2016. It took about 18 months to complete.
Oh, it's an amazing project and huge. All right, so you were involved early on. As you said, it's become a 5-year journey. So once the client made the decision to demolish the existing house on here and rebuild a new one, were you picked then from the client?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So you were picked by the client to come back and
to quote the works.
Quote up the works for the new home.
Yeah, so came up with a fixed price to build the home, and from that we started construction 3-4 months later.
Quoting up a project of this size and calibre, how much time is involved in actually doing that?
Yeah, a lot.
People don't realise, do they?
No, they don't. And look, this project probably took 60, 70 hours. Took nearly 6 weeks to quote. It was pretty involved. So in the last 3-4 years I've been charging for quotes and just give people a fee to give them a detailed quotation, and then if I'm successful that comes off the contract price.
I think that's fair and reasonable, dealing with this sort of scale and complexity, to spend 6 weeks of your time quoting it up. It's
definitely.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, they're huge, and they take a lot of man hours. So
I think it also shows from the client's perspective too that if they're serious about you and they really want you and they're realistic about going ahead with the project, well, by paying you, that shows, doesn't it? Yeah,
definitely. I've found in the last 3-4 years just doing this process seems to commit the client, and it also encourages me to give them a detailed, realistic quotation that's going to be true and honest. You certainly go out of your way to make sure that it's correct and as much detail as you can provide to the client, because they're paying for it. And it's definitely worked for me. It's something that I'm a big believer in, and I don't think people should be working for nothing.
How do you handle a client who's based in Singapore? I mean, you mentioned before, like an investment banker or a stockbroker. How difficult is the communication, having that, I guess, barrier in the way?
I try to have the architect or the designer involved with the project. If they're not available, it is difficult. We just finished one recently. Well, most of them, the architect is pretty well involved, the designer, just on a monthly basis as like a fixed rate or whatever, just to oversee the project and whatever. I think clients like also when a builder has a relationship with a designer, and that's where I've had pretty good success with designers and relationships with them, because you got to work quite closely with them when you're doing this sort of calibre of build. Nothing's standard, so we need that communication and fortnightly site meetings if necessary to just keep things in the communication, so we don't do anything that's basically not supposed to happen, or we might read it differently. But we certainly try to keep that communication with the designer if the client's not available.
With this project, as I mentioned, it's quite a large one. How do you handle changes? I mean, I can't imagine the project being entirely, even though you quoted it fixed price, I'm sure there were changes along the way.
Oh, sure, yeah. The job of this calibre is destined to have variations, and we try to be very upfront, and like I use a HIA contract, and there's a variation form that you can fill out and get the client to sign that. So any variation here was documented and emailed to the client, and they would sign it and understand the variation. Just have that communication and have a legal document being this variation document. At least it puts that out there, and at least there's no surprises, because the amount of she'll be right mates, and
I was going to say the same thing. You'd be surprised, and that's legal 101, isn't it? Always, sign the document.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm pretty true to that. I used to be a little bit complacent of that. I never used to be that regimented about it, but in the last couple of years, that's a give me. I just have to do it, otherwise we don't go ahead. I'd rather the job sit there for a week and get it signed off and get it finalised and agreed to before we continue.
With this project, what's your favourite part of this job?
It's a real weekend. It's a real holiday home. It's very much like a resorty style. I love the pool area, and just the glazing. The windows in this property are amazing. It's probably one of the biggest changes in the building industry I've seen in the last 5 years, is the amount of people are spending on glazing and glass. It just seems to be such a feature of the home now, and joinery is another one where people just seem to be really really spending a lot of money on joinery of late.
What about the kitchen behind us? Like that's impressive.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kitchen. Won Hunter Kitchen of the Year as well in the same night. So GJ Morgan were very happy with that win, and they were also in the Australian Awards a couple of weeks ago. And unfortunately it didn't win, but it's a worthy finalist for sure.
And what about, was there anything challenging with this site that you thought, oh geez, how am I going to deal with this, or did you have to put a bit more effort into problem solving?
The ground was, getting out of the ground was just the sheer size of the property brought some challenges, and just the sheer volume of concrete. It's very much a commercial build. The windows are full commercial, that I've never done this before. They're installed on site, and it's a very different from a domestic residential construction. It's literally, as I said before, it's a commercial building, really. Air conditioning was a major issue, being a flat roof, and there's over 17 ducted bulkhead units throughout the home.
Because the whole house is basically concrete, split level, isn't it?
Yes, there's just no voids or anything. So there's over 17 units in there, which is quite a feat. back when we did it. It's a new technology that they've used. The whole home's automated, so it can all run off an app on your phone. You literally can control everything from the heating to the pool heating. They can turn the heater on as they're coming up the freeway and stuff like that. So yeah, and it's fully secure. There's cameras and automation everywhere basically. So yeah, it's a fairly tight ship.
Finally, what are your plans for the future?
Plan just to keep on going the way we're going at the moment. Looking forward to establishing myself a bit more in Newcastle, which will definitely happen in the next 12 to 18 months. And just look for new projects and for ourselves and for clients. That's our main aim, and to be happy.
Okay, Sean, if people listening to this want to get into contact with you, what's the best way to go about it?
Probably the website, richardsbuilding.com.au, or Instagram, Richards Building. And pretty much all my details are there.
All right, Sean, I really want to thank you for coming on to Build Hatch. I congratulate you on this incredible home that you've built here in Soldiers Point. It's been amazing to have a good look at it, and I'm sure the clients are extremely happy. And congratulations, and look forward to speaking to you in future.
No worries. Thanks very much, Aaron, for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Build Hatch. You got to hear about Sean's award-winning efforts at Soldiers Point. I really loved hearing the importance of Sean's long-standing relationships with the incredible building people, such as building designers, architects, and all the tradespeople. As usual, feel free to join our community and follow us on our Instagram. Otherwise, go to our website. Have a great week, and you'll hear me on the airways again next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.